So that's the first lane.
But we'll also do 100K deals. We'll do 50K deals. We don't really care as long as we can make a minimum amount of money and the risk is basically none.
What is your process for vetting the borrower?
We don't really vet the borrower. We vet the title company. Because the way these deals work, I like to joke, the more I need to know about the borrower or the more I need to know about the transaction, the less likely I'm interested. Because the way these work...
So you're just looking at the title chain or...
Yeah, the way these work, it should all be protected by the title company. So the title company is not going to release my loan proceeds until the buyer's proceeds come in and the whole transaction is completed and I get my money back. Done the correct way, it should be a totally risk-free transaction to me.
Got it. And then as far as fees or what you charge for that, they can go onto your website, click on there, and then...
We don't even list that. I mean, it's basically, we're normal. We're between 1 to 10 points, just depending on the situation. 10 points is a little bit high, but let me describe a reason why it makes sense. So the next variation on Croc lending is a seller-financed loan. What do I mean by this? There are certain situations where, let's say somebody is buying $1 million house. Their hard money lender is going to lend them 70%, so they're willing to lend $700K. So that means the buyer here needs to come up with $300K down payment, right? In this case, if the buyer's not liquid or they're like, man, I don't really think this house truly is worth $1 million, like I'd rather pay 900 or whatever, this buyer can work out a deal with the seller and say, hey, seller, if getting $1 million is that important to you, even though I think it's a little overpriced, fine, I'll pay you the $1 million, but I need you to reinvest $300K into this deal as a second lien, as an unsecured loan, as pref equity, as equity in the deal, right? If I don't really like your price, but you give me the right terms, I can make the deal work. And just like if you give me the right price, but you give me terrible terms, I can't make it work. So in that situation, the buyer, if they're not liquid, they're like, well, hey, let me try to find a way to make this $300K investment by the seller back into the deal. Let's figure out a way for that to count as the down payment so that I, as the buyer, don't have to come up with $300K. And depending on the lender and what the requirements are, there's a way that I figured out to do it based on my experience being a lawyer and being a title and escrow agent here in Texas for several years. I figured out a way to do it to protect all parties where the buyer can find a way to use the seller's reinvestment back as a down payment.
So essentially for the buyer, that would really, really mitigate the amount of cash they would need to come out of pocket with.
Correct.
Essentially, you could potentially do it with $0 out of pocket.
Potentially $0 out of pocket. So one deal I did, the buyer actually cashed out and got some proceeds back at closing. But again, this is predicated on negotiating with the seller. Hey, you're going to I don't really like your price, but if you're going to reinvest a bunch of money at a very low rate of interest, like I can make the deal work.